The Ashen Key War, Part 3. Chapter 12, The Meeting with Thorne. London, A Forgotten Chapel in Whitechapel, March 6, 11:30 p.m. The city was drowning in fog. A thick, suffocating mist clung to the cobblestone streets, swirling between the gas lamps and stretching its ghostly fingers into the abandoned alleys of Whitechapel. Tonight, London's filth did not sleep. But Alistair Graves, Eleanor Blackwood, Jonathan Whitmore, and Ezra Renwick were not here for its usual dangers. They were here for a monster of their own making. A man who had hunted them across 2 continents. A man who had nearly burned them alive. A man who, tonight, would believe Graves was coming home. Lucien Thorne. Inside the chapel, 11:40 p.m. The forgotten chapel stood like a skeleton, its wooden beams cracked, its stained glass windows shattered long ago. A place where the poor once prayed. Now, it belonged to shadows. Candles flickered along the stone altar, casting eerie, golden light against the decayed walls. And at the center of it all, Lucien Thorne waited. He was dressed in his signature black, his golden monocle glinting as he stood patiently at the pulpit, like a preacher awaiting a lost soul. His voice was calm, almost amused. "You came, after all." Graves stepped forward, keeping his movements measured, his posture controlled. "Did you doubt me?" Thorne smiled. "Not at all." His gloved fingers traced the wood of the altar, his eyes never leaving Graves. "But I did wonder if you'd be smart enough to realize where you truly belong." Behind Graves, Eleanor, Jonathan, and Ezra remained still. Eleanor's fingers hovered near her dagger. Jonathan kept his breathing even. Ezra, ever the rogue, simply smirked. Thorne's gaze flickered over them. "Your companions seem tense." Graves smiled. "Wouldn't you be?" Thorne chuckled. "Perhaps." A pause. Then, his expression darkened. "Why are you really here, Graves?" The moment had arrived. The gamble. The lie. Graves met Thorne's gaze directly. And then, he spoke. "Because I want back in." Silence. A flicker of something dangerous passed through Thorne's expression. Then, he laughed. A low, rich sound, both amused and disbelieving. Graves said nothing. Thorne's laughter faded. "You truly expect me to believe that?" Graves tilted his head. "Why not?" Thorne stepped closer, his boots echoing against the stone. "Because I know you, Graves." His golden monocle glinted. "You are a man of logic. Of calculation." He circled him slowly, like a wolf testing its prey. "And yet, you expect me to believe that, after betraying the society, after stealing from us, after burning our house to the ground, you would suddenly change your mind?" Thorne stopped. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell me the truth, Alistair." Graves exhaled slowly. Then, he smiled. "I miss the power." Jonathan stiffened. Eleanor's pulse quickened. Ezra remained unmoving. Thorne studied him carefully. Graves continued. "I miss the control," he murmured. "The knowledge. The ability to pull the strings while the rest of the world stumbles blindly." He took a step forward. "You know me, Thorne. You know I don't fight for morality." He tilted his head. "You know I fight to win." Another silence. Thorne's gaze sharpened. Then, he smiled. A slow, sharp curve of his lips. "Ah." Graves knew that smile. It was the smile of a man who enjoyed watching others bleed. Thorne's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Then prove it." Graves did not blink. "How?" Thorne's fingers curled around his cane. "You know the answer." A pause. Then, he turned his gaze toward Jonathan. The doctor froze. Eleanor's hand tightened on her dagger. Ezra muttered, "Oh, that is not good." Thorne smiled. "If you wish to prove your loyalty, you'll kill the good doctor." Graves exhaled. He had expected this. Thorne was a man of rituals. A man who did not believe in words alone. But this? This was an opportunity. Graves reached into his coat. Jonathan stared at him. Graves. With a flick of his wrist, Graves pulled his revolver. Aimed it at Jonathan's chest. Jonathan's breath caught. The room was silent. Eleanor's pulse thundered in her ears. Ezra did not move. Thorne's golden eye gleamed. "Well?" Jonathan's voice was barely a whisper. "Graves." Graves said nothing. The gun remained steady. Then, he pulled the trigger. The bullet whizzed past Jonathan's ear. A split second later, a hidden enforcer behind him collapsed. Dead. Thorne's smile disappeared. Eleanor lunged. A dagger flew from her sleeve, slicing through the air toward Thorne's exposed throat. Thorne barely had time to react. His cane flicked up, deflecting the strike, but not before the blade grazed his cheek. A single drop of blood rolled down his face. His expression darkened. Graves moved instantly, seizing Ezra's wrist and yanking him toward the exit. Jonathan, still stunned, let Eleanor grab him and drag him toward the door. Thorne's voice echoed across the chapel. "You dare betray me again, Graves." Graves smirked. "Always." They burst through the chapel doors, sprinting into the fog-soaked streets. Behind them, gunfire. Enforcers poured out of the building, chasing after them like hounds scenting blood. Ezra growled, "You could have shot him." Graves smirked. "And waste the fun." Jonathan wheezed. "I hate all of you." Eleanor yanked him forward. "Run faster." The city swallowed them whole. They had survived. But Thorne would not forget this. And now, the society was no longer offering Graves a choice. Now, they simply wanted him dead. Jonathan, still gasping for breath, looked at Graves. "What now?" Graves adjusted his coat. "Now," he murmured, "we stopped the first assassination." Jonathan exhaled. "Right. Of course. Just another night of madness." Ezra smirked. "Oh, Doctor. This was only the beginning." Chapter 13, The Race to Stop the First Killing. London, an undisclosed safe house, March 7, 2:45 a.m. The room was dimly lit, the only source of illumination coming from a single oil lamp flickering on the wooden table. A map of London lay spread across its surface, marked with hastily drawn circles and notes. The tension in the room was palpable. Alistair Graves stood motionless, his hands pressed against the edge of the table, his eyes scanning the map with cold precision. Eleanor Blackwood sat opposite him, dagger in hand, turning it between her fingers. Her gaze was focused, unwavering. Jonathan Whitmore, still catching his breath from their harrowing escape, slumped into a chair. His face was pale, his pulse still recovering from having a gun aimed at his chest, even if Graves had never intended to pull the real trigger. Ezra Renwick lounged near the door, absent-mindedly adjusting his cufflinks. The only sound in the room was the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Eleanor broke the silence. "We need to move. Fast." Graves nodded. "We have 5 days to stop them." Jonathan exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. 5 days to stop assassinations that have already been set in motion. Ezra smirked. "Oh, I do love an impossible challenge." Graves ignored him. "We start with the first target." He turned the ledger toward the light, flipping through the names carefully. And there it was. The first target of the Ashen Key Society. Lord Edwin Bellingham, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Jonathan groaned. Of course. A government official. Why wouldn't it be? Eleanor frowned. If they kill Bellingham first, the others will fall like dominoes. Ezra arched an eyebrow. And where, pray tell, does dear Lord Bellingham reside? Graves sighed. In his estate on the edge of Hyde Park. Ezra blinked. Ah. That's unfortunate. Jonathan frowned. Why? Ezra chuckled. Because Hyde Park is crawling with society enforcers. And I'm willing to bet it's even worse tonight. Graves smirked, then we'll have to be creative. Bellingham's estate, the outskirts of Hyde Park, March 7, 3:20 a.m. The mansion was an imposing sight. Tall iron gates stood between them and the stone manor beyond, the lights inside still glowing. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their faces hidden beneath black scarves, society enforcers. Jonathan whispered, "What's our approach?" Graves studied the scene. "We can't storm the place. Too many witnesses." Eleanor scanned the upper balconies. "We need to get inside without them knowing." Ezra grinned. "I do have an idea." Jonathan sighed. "I hate your ideas." Ezra clapped him on the shoulder. "Oh, Doctor. That's what makes them so much fun." A carriage rolled down the street, its wheels clattering over the cobblestone. Ezra stepped forward, adjusting his lapels, and approached the 2 guards at the front gate with a charming smile. "Good evening, gentlemen." The guards exchanged wary glances. "State your business," one of them said gruffly. Ezra tilted his head. "I have an urgent matter to discuss with Lord Bellingham. Of the utmost importance." The guard stiffened. "Who sent you?" Ezra's grin widened. "Why, the Ashen Key Society, of course." That got their attention. One of the guards tensed. "We weren't informed of any visitors." Ezra shrugged. "And yet, here I am." The guard hesitated. "Wait here." As one of them turned toward the front door, the second remained at the gate. A mistake. Because at that exact moment, Eleanor's dagger flashed. A swift movement, a precise strike, and the guard collapsed. Jonathan caught him before he hit the ground, lowering him gently onto the cobblestones. Ezra whistled softly. "Efficient." Eleanor smirked. "We don't have time for your games." Graves moved quickly, leading the way through the side entrance, slipping past the servants' quarters. They were inside. But now, they had less than 15 minutes to find Bellingham before it was too late. Bellingham's study, 3:35 a.m. The manor was eerily silent. Graves led the way up the staircase, his eyes scanning the hallways for movement. Jonathan muttered under his breath. "I hate sneaking around mansions." Eleanor hushed him. "Be quiet." They reached a set of double doors. Inside, candlelight flickered. Graves pushed the door open carefully. And there he was. Lord Edwin Bellingham. He was seated at his grand mahogany desk, scribbling notes, utterly unaware of what was coming. Jonathan sighed in relief. "He's alive." Eleanor stepped forward. "Not for long if we don't move now." Graves nodded. "Bellingham," but before he could speak, the candlelight flickered. A shadow moved. And then, a gunshot. Bellingham jerked backward as a bullet shattered the glass behind him. Graves lunged, knocking him to the floor. Eleanor whipped around, dagger ready, but the assassin was already moving. A black-cloaked figure emerged from the shadows, a long-barreled pistol smoking in his grip. Jonathan gasped. He was already here. Ezra cursed. And now we have a problem. The assassin moved fast. A second shot rang out, Graves barely dodged, rolling behind the heavy desk. Eleanor threw her dagger, but the assassin ducked, moving with unnatural speed. Jonathan dragged Bellingham behind a chair. Stay down. Graves reloaded his revolver. Ezra pulled his own pistol. Eleanor grabbed a fireplace poker. The assassin hesitated. Then, he vanished into the shadows. Ezra exhaled sharply. Well. That's ominous. Jonathan muttered. We just barely stopped that. Graves narrowed his eyes. No. We didn't stop anything. Bellingham stared at him, shaken. What do you mean? Graves exhaled. I mean, this wasn't an assassination. His eyes darkened. This was a warning. Jonathan groaned. And what exactly do we do now? Graves smirked. Now. We hunt him down. Eleanor's eyes gleamed. Then let's get started. Chapter 14, The Hunt for the Shadow Assassin. Bellingham's estate, 3:40 a.m. The room was still, except for the slow, ragged breathing of Lord Edwin Bellingham. The shattered window let in the cold London air, the curtains swaying as if whispering a warning. Alistair Graves stood motionless, his revolver still raised, his mind racing. Somewhere, in the darkness beyond the estate walls, the assassin was getting away. Jonathan Whitmore pressed a hand to Bellingham's shoulder, checking him over. You're not hit. The bullet missed. Bellingham's hands trembled as he tried to speak. Who was that? Graves lowered his weapon. That, he murmured, is what we're about to find out. London, the backstreets of Hyde Park, 3:45 a.m. The group moved fast, slipping out of the estate and into the fog-drenched night. The assassin had vanished into the labyrinthine alleys near Hyde Park, where the city's fog and shadows swallowed men whole. Graves led the way, his mind calculating every possible escape route. Eleanor Blackwood ran at his side, dagger ready. Jonathan Whitmore followed, panting slightly. We don't even know where he went. Ezra Renwick chuckled. Oh, we'll find him. He stopped at a cobblestone intersection, where the fog curled thickly around the street lamps. Graves knelt, studying the ground. A trail of fresh boot prints in the damp earth. He smirked. There. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. You can track him. Graves grinned. Better than that. His voice lowered. I already know where he's going. The old theatre ruins, 3:55 a.m. London had many forgotten places. Places where the rich had once gathered in splendor, only to be abandoned when the city moved on. The old Westminster Theatre was one such place. A burned-out ruin, its skeletal remains hidden in the shadow of the city. And tonight, it was about to become a battleground. Graves moved first, slipping through the crumbling doorway. Inside, the wooden stage had collapsed, and the once gilded seats were rotted and broken. Jonathan exhaled. Why is it always abandoned places? Eleanor ignored him. He's here. Graves nodded. Stay sharp. Then, a whisper of movement. A shadow detached itself from the ruins. And the assassin attacked. The assassin moved like a phantom, a blur of darkness and steel. Graves barely dodged the first strike, twisting to avoid the glint of a blade aimed at his ribs. Eleanor lunged forward, dagger clashing against the assassin's own. Sparks flew in the dim light. Ezra whipped out his pistol, aiming for the shadowy figure. But the assassin moved too fast, spinning out of range. Jonathan, utterly unequipped for such encounters, muttered, "Brilliant. Of course he's one of these." The assassin lunged at Graves again, faster, more precise, but Graves had anticipated it. He ducked low, grabbing the attacker's wrist mid-strike, and with a sharp twist, he disarmed him. The dagger clattered to the ground. The assassin froze. Eleanor's blade pressed to his throat. "Don't move." The figure breathed heavily, trapped. Then, slowly, the hood was pushed back. And Graves stilled. Because the assassin wasn't a stranger. It was someone he knew. Inside the ruins, 4:10 a.m. The firelight flickered against the assassin's face, revealing sharp, angular features, and a scar running from his temple to his jaw. His eyes, dark as the Thames at midnight, locked onto Graves with quiet fury. Eleanor's grip tightened on her dagger. "Who is he?" Graves' voice was calm. "His name is Matthias Drake." Jonathan frowned. "And how do you know him?" Graves exhaled. "Because he used to be my partner." A stunned silence. Ezra whistled. "Oh, this is interesting." Eleanor's expression hardened. "He was one of yours." Matthias didn't flinch. "I still am." His voice was hoarse, quiet. "The only difference is, I never betrayed them." Graves studied him carefully. "Then why are you here?" Matthias' jaw clenched. "To finish what you started." Graves' smirk faded. Eleanor glanced between them. "Someone explain." "Now." Matthias' voice was low. "When you left the society, Graves, you didn't leave alone." A pause. "You took secrets with you." Graves remained still. Matthias continued. "Secrets that the society wanted buried." His gaze darkened. "And now, they've sent me to clean up your mess." Jonathan exhaled. "This is very bad." Ezra chuckled. "Oh, it's worse than bad." Matthias glanced at Eleanor. Then at Jonathan. Then, back to Graves. "You have no idea how deep this goes, do you?" Graves remained unreadable. "Why don't you enlighten me?" Matthias exhaled sharply. Then, he spoke. "The assassinations are a distraction." Jonathan's stomach dropped. "What?" Matthias' voice lowered. "They're covering something bigger. Something worse." A pause. Then, he delivered the final blow. "The society isn't just taking control of London. They're planning to burn it down." Jonathan stared. Ezra muttered, "Well. That's dramatic." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "How?" Matthias shook his head. "I don't know everything. But I do know this." His voice lowered to a whisper. "They have one last target." Graves' stomach twisted. Jonathan hesitated. "Who?" Matthias' eyes met Graves'. "The final name on the ledger." Graves exhaled. Then, Matthias spoke the name. And the entire room fell silent. Because it wasn't a government official. It wasn't a nobleman. It was someone who, if they fell, could send the entire city into chaos. Matthias whispered. "The final target is the Queen." Chapter 15, The Plot Against the Crown. London, Renwick Safe House, March 7, 5:30 a.m. The room was deathly silent. The words hung in the air like the sharp edge of a blade, waiting to draw blood. Matthias Drake's voice had been calm, deliberate. But the name he had spoken carried a weight so immense that it left even Ezra Renwick momentarily speechless. "The final target is the Queen." Jonathan Whitmore stared at Matthias, his face pale with shock. Eleanor Blackwood sat rigid, her hands clenching into fists. And Alistair Graves? He did not react. Not outwardly. But deep inside, a cold certainty settled over him. The Ashen Key Society wasn't just grasping for power. They were attempting to end an era. And they had 5 days left to do it. Jonathan exhaled sharply. You're telling me they planned to assassinate the Queen? Matthias nodded. And not just her. He leaned forward, placing both hands on the wooden table. This isn't just about killing Victoria. He let the words sink in. They want to create a power vacuum. Ezra frowned. You mean? Matthias nodded. They're planning to take down her entire court. Eleanor's expression darkened. The Prime Minister. The Royal Guard. The closest advisors in the monarchy. Matthias nodded grimly. They want to kill every major power figure in one single act of destruction. Jonathan ran a hand over his face. Dear God. Ezra whistled. I must admit, I do love a good dramatic coup. Eleanor shot him a glare. Not the time. Graves' voice was quiet but sharp. How? Matthias met his gaze. The coronation banquet. Jonathan frowned. But the Queen's coronation was years ago. Matthias shook his head. Not her coronation. The annual banquet celebrating it. Eleanor's eyes widened. Of course. Graves nodded. Every high-ranking official will be present. Matthias' jaw tightened. And they plan to wipe them all out in one night. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. This is impossible. How would they even attempt this? Matthias exhaled. There's a single agent inside the palace. A mole. Graves' jaw clenched. Who? Matthias shook his head. I don't know. Only the Crimson Lord and his inner circle do. But, he hesitated. Graves' eyes narrowed. But what? Matthias exhaled. I do know who's delivering the final blow. Silence. Then, he said the name. The Black Viper. Ezra blinked. Oh, hell. Eleanor swore under her breath. Jonathan looked between them, confused. Who is the Black Viper? Ezra shook his head. You mean who was the Black Viper? He glanced at Graves. Because our dear Alistair here. He gestured dramatically. Killed him 3 years ago. Jonathan blinked. Wait. What? Eleanor's gaze snapped to Graves. You never told me that. Graves' face remained unreadable. Because it wasn't relevant. Until now. Matthias exhaled. It's relevant now, Graves. Because he isn't dead. Jonathan threw up his hands. Of course he isn't. Because nothing ever stays buried in this damn city. Graves tilted his head. You're sure? Matthias nodded. I saw him. 2 nights ago. And he was alive. Jonathan muttered, I have several complaints. Eleanor ignored him. If the Black Viper is back, that means, Matthias finished for her. That means he's the one set to kill the Queen. Ezra sighed. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Graves, however, was already thinking ahead. Then we don't just need to stop the Society's plan. He lifted his gaze. We need to find him first. Jonathan frowned. Where the hell do we start looking? Matthias was already ahead of him. His name before the Viper was Silas Mercer. He used to work out of the docks in Southwark, running an underground operation for the Society. Eleanor nodded. Then that's where we start. Graves tilted his head. That's where you start. Ezra raised an eyebrow. And you're going where? Graves' smirk returned. To see an old friend. Ezra muttered, I hate when you say that. Jonathan groaned. Who this time? Graves adjusted his coat. The only man who might know the Viper better than I do. He turned toward the door. Lucien Thorne. Eleanor exhaled sharply. So we split up. Graves nodded. You, Ezra, and Matthias will track Silas Mercer at the docks. Jonathan crossed his arms. And you? Graves' smirk widened. I have a meeting to attend. Ezra muttered, You're going to get yourself killed one of these days, Graves. Graves chuckled. But not today. He turned to Eleanor. Find the Black Viper. His eyes darkened. And I'll make sure Thorne tells me what he knows. Eleanor smirked. Then let's get to work. With that, they split into two teams. Ezra, Eleanor, and Matthias vanished into the London night, heading for Southwark docks. And Alistair Graves? He walked alone into the fog, toward a meeting with the man who had tried to kill him once before. Lucien Thorne. Chapter 16, Graves and Thorne, The Last Game Begins. London, a private club in the West End, March 7, 9:45 p.m. The club smelled of expensive cigars and betrayal. Thick mahogany walls lined the dimly lit interior, where London's most powerful men indulged in their nightly excess, whiskey, whispered deals, and the illusion of untouchability. But tonight, one man sat alone. Lucien Thorne. And Alistair Graves had just walked into his den. The moment Graves entered, the club's atmosphere shifted. Conversation dimmed. A few men turned their heads, watching with quiet intrigue. Thorne, however, did not immediately react. He remained in his private booth, his golden monocle glinting in the candlelight as he swirled his glass of brandy. A long, slow moment passed. Then, you have nerve, Graves. His voice was smooth, unreadable. Graves smirked. You always did appreciate a bold entrance. He slid into the seat opposite Thorne, uninvited but unbothered. Thorne finally lifted his gaze. You look well. Considering the circumstances. Graves chuckled. Considering you just tried to have me killed? I'd say I'm doing remarkably well. Thorne smiled. A predator's smile. If I truly wanted you dead, Graves, you wouldn't be sitting here. Graves leaned forward. Then why am I? Thorne exhaled, setting his glass down. Because I am, intrigued. The two men studied each other, both knowing this was a conversation where every word was a weapon. Graves tilted his head. Then let's skip the pretense. We both know why I'm here. Thorne chuckled. Do we? Graves' smirk widened. The Queen. The coronation banquet. The Black Viper. Thorne finally leaned back, sighing. Ah. So you figured it out. He picked up his brandy again, taking a slow, deliberate sip. But the real question, Alistair, is, what are you planning to do about it? Graves' voice was calm. Stop it. Thorne smiled again. And how, exactly, do you intend to do that? A tension filled the air, thick as smoke. Graves studied Thorne carefully. The man had never been merely a weapon of the society. He was more than that. Smarter. And dangerously unpredictable. Thorne tapped a gloved finger against his glass. I admire your determination, Graves. Truly, I do. But the plan is already set in motion. He tilted his head slightly. The Queen will fall. The monarchy will collapse. And you? You're playing a game you cannot win. Graves exhaled slowly. Then why are you still talking to me? Thorne's golden monocle glinted. Because, dear Alistair, part of me wonders, a pause. If you might finally see reason. Thorne leaned forward slightly. You're not a hero, Graves. You never were. You were one of us. His voice lowered. And you could be again. The words were soft, coaxing. A trap, carefully set. Graves' expression remained unreadable. You still think I'd return? Thorne smirked. I think you haven't given me your final answer. Silence. Then, Graves chuckled. It was a quiet, sharp sound, filled with something dangerous. And I think you want me to refuse. Thorne's brows lifted slightly. Oh. Graves leaned closer. Because as long as I'm alive, you still have something to chase. Thorne's smirk widened. Perhaps. A moment of stillness. Then, Graves placed both hands on the table, his voice dropping to a whisper. Where is the viper? Thorne watched him carefully. Then, he smiled. Now, that is information that comes with a price. Graves didn't blink. Name it. Thorne exhaled. Then, his gaze darkened. A duel. Ezra's voice rang in Graves' mind, you're going to get yourself killed one of these days. Graves smirked. Name the place. Location, Blackfriars Bridge, March 8, 4 a.m. The city was silent as Graves arrived at Blackfriars Bridge, the Thames whispering beneath them. Lucien Thorne stood waiting, his cane resting beside him. 2 pistols lay on a velvet cloth. Graves exhaled. Dramatic, even for you. Thorne smiled. 1 shot each. He picked up the pistol, weighing it carefully. If you win, I tell you where the viper is. And if I win? Well. His golden monocle glinted. Then it hardly matters. A pause. Then, they stepped apart. The duel began. Chapter 17, The Duel at Blackfriars, Winner Takes All. London, Blackfriars Bridge, March 8, 4 a.m. The Thames stretched wide and black beneath them, its murky waters reflecting the dim glow of the city's flickering gaslights. A thick fog clung to the bridge, swallowing sound and muffling the world beyond. And in this isolated pocket of London, 2 men stood facing each other. Alistair Graves. Lucien Thorne. Between them, a velvet cloth lay atop a weathered wooden crate, holding 2 matching dueling pistols. 1 shot each. No second chances. Graves exhaled, his breath visible in the cold morning air. Thorne smirked, his golden monocle glinting in the low light. Shall we begin? Dueling was a game of precision. Of timing, calculation, and nerve. Graves had played before. So had Thorne. This was not just a battle of bullets, it was a battle of psychology. Each man understood the other. Each knew how to force a mistake. And tonight, one of them would be proven wrong. Thorne picked up a pistol with casual ease, inspecting its craftsmanship. You know, Graves, he mused, there was a time I would have called you a brother. Graves smirked. Pity. I always saw you as a rival. Thorne chuckled. A fine distinction. He gestured to the second pistol. Take your weapon. Graves did not hesitate. His fingers wrapped around the cold steel grip, the weight comfortingly familiar. They stepped apart. 10 paces. Fog curled around their boots, whispering secrets. The world shrank. There was nothing but the breath between them. Thorne's voice was calm, unhurried. Shall we count together? Graves exhaled. By all means. 1. They stepped apart. The wood of the bridge creaked underfoot. 2. A distant foghorn moaned, lost in the black expanse of the river. 3. The air smelled of rain, of iron, of inevitability. 4. Graves kept his breathing even, his focus absolute. Thorne did the same. 5. Ezra's voice echoed in Graves' mind. You're going to get yourself killed one of these days, Graves. 6. Eleanor's voice followed. Then let's make it count. 7. Jonathan's exasperation. This is madness. 8. Graves adjusted his grip. Thorne did not falter. 9. A heartbeat stretched across eternity. 10. That they turned. For one frozen moment, time ceased to exist. Graves locked eyes with Thorne. 2 predators. 2 survivors. 2 men who had spent their lives outwitting death. And then 2 gunshots rang out. A flash of gunpowder ignited the morning fog. A bullet split the air. A body staggered. And when the smoke cleared, Lucien Thorne was bleeding. Thorne stumbled back, his black coat darkening with red. His golden monocle slipped from his face, shattering against the wooden planks of the bridge. He caught himself against the railing, breathing heavily. Graves did not lower his weapon. Thorne let out a low chuckle, pain laced in his voice. You always were fast, Graves. Blood dripped onto the bridge. But I wonder. Thorne exhaled, his voice quieter now. Did you win? Or did I let you? Tell me where the Viper is. Thorne smirked, even as pain flickered through his features. So impatient. He leaned his head back against the cold iron railing. Southwark. A pause. The old clockmaker's shop on Millbank Street. Graves narrowed his eyes. If you're lying, Thorne chuckled. If I were lying, Graves, you'd already be dead. A long silence stretched between them. Then, Thorne's eyes sharpened. Do you truly think killing Mercer will stop this? Graves did not answer. Thorne smirked. The society is already winning. The Queen is already doomed. Graves cocked his pistol again. Not if I get to him first. The fog thickened. Thorne's breathing slowed. For the first time, his expression held something unreadable. Graves' grip tightened. Any last words, Thorne? A slow smirk. Yes, actually. A pause. You should have killed me the first time. Graves' finger hovered over the trigger. Then, he lowered the gun. Thorne laughed, shaking his head. Still predictable, Graves. Graves stepped back. Be grateful. Thorne smirked. Oh, I am. Because one day, I will return the favor. Graves turned. And without another word, he vanished into the fog. Graves walked into the London night, his mind already calculating. Ezra, Eleanor, and Matthias were already in Southwark. He would meet them at the clockmaker's shop. And if Silas Mercer was truly there, then the Black Viper was about to meet his end.
Every mystery leaves a mark. And the next case is already unfolding. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe, like, and share. There are more secrets waiting to be uncovered. Join us in the next chapter of A Study in Secrets.